Climbing cell towers revealed spine-chilling rules. A sinister list of the cursed and haunted, in the heart of a fading suburb. The abandoned cell towers stood like ancient sentinels, ghostly, foreboding structures that loomed high above the crumbling streets. Stories festered around them, shrouded in layers of fear and suspicion. Legends whispered of cursed souls bound to the towers, their spirits haunting the shadows, waiting for unwitting teens to step too close. There were rules, always rules, that no one dared to talk about openly, and that was exactly what the kids desired. A taste of the forbidden, the thrill of horror just beyond their town's dilapidated edges. Jake had stumbled upon an obscure online forum that showcased these spine-chilling tales, and his heart raced as he devoured each word. He shared it with his friends over the weekend, laughter sparking amidst a haze of bravado. They were desperate for adventure, feasting on the intoxicating blend of thrill and dread. "Let us check one tonight," Jason urged, his voice tinged with reckless bravado. Excitement twisted in Jake's stomach, but a worry lingered. Stories often had deeper truths lurking beneath their surface. As darkness cloaked the streets, the boys ventured into the haunting night, pushing against the oppressive stillness, the moonlight stark against the fading shadows. Jake's pulse quickened. Something felt off. The closer they got to the first tower, the more the air thickened, cold and heavy. Flickering lights danced in the periphery. Was it just blown bulbs? Or something more sinister? They waved away the dense chill, telling themselves they were brave, invincible. But bravery, they soon realized, can easily slip into foolishness. A few eerie rustles in the grass sent them on high alert, yet they chuckled nervously. The tower's outline glimmered against the starlit sky, hauntingly beautiful yet forbidding. It beckoned them forward, its iron frame casting grotesque shadows that felt alive, as if they were wrapped in the arms of a dark creature hungry for their fear. Before they could step closer, silence consumed them. Suddenly, Riley's laughter cut off as if plucked from existence. Panic instilled terror in Jake's core, and he called for his friend, his voice cracking against the stillness of night. The shadows seemed to pulse, beckoning closer with their ominous silence. "Something's wrong," whispered Jason, eyes darting toward the abyss before them. Meanwhile, back home, Sarah washed dishes by the dim light of the diner she worked at. An unsettling chill threaded through her bones, an instinct born from countless sleepless nights. She checked her phone, heart dropping at the stream of frantic texts from Jake. Fear gripped her throat. What could he possibly be into? With a surge of panic, she dropped everything, heading into the dark unknown of a town she thought she had known, now strangely ominous in the twilight. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." As time ticked away, dread filled her thoughts. The neighbors exchanged furtive glances, tainted with hidden knowledge, their whispers weaving a web of deceit. Doors creaked open, only to reveal eyes brimming with suspicion, and every shadow felt heavier, deformed by secrets once thought buried. Meanwhile, Jake stood frozen beside the looming tower, the absence of Riley's laughter now deafening. The wind carried whispers, chilling, urgent. He felt the stir of something lurking, something watching. They leaned close, adrenaline pumping, yet deep dread settled in, a sense that they had crossed an unseeable line. What had lured them into the heart of darkness? What waited in the tower, behind its chipped walls and rusted edges? As Sarah raced through the night, purpose fueled her movements, but fear clawed at the edges of her heart. She could not shake the feeling that something was horribly wrong, something that would twist their entire world. And when she finally reached the tower, the air thick with a palpable sense of foreboding, she was met with the dark truth that one thing was certain. Not all shadows are mere tricks of the light. What would she find when the truth clawed its way to the forefront? Was it too late for Jake? The wind howled as Sarah approached the cell tower, its skeletal frame looming larger with each step. She felt the weight of the night pressing in, the air crackling with dread, almost as if the shadows were alive. Her heart thundered, and the first pangs of regret gnawed at her. Had she been too late? Jake and Jason lingered just beyond the tower's reach, eyes darting in every direction, searching for any sign of their missing friend. Riley! Jake shouted into the void, the name echoing back, taunting him. The silence that followed was heavy, oppressive. It felt like a cruel joke. Where was the laughter that used to fill this cursed space? Suddenly, beams of pale moonlight broke through swirling clouds, illuminating the ground where they stood. For a fleeting moment, peace settled, but it was shattered the instant a shrill scream pierced the night, a sound that was unmistakably Riley's. Jake's gut twisted as panic surged through him. "We need to go back," he urged, desperation threading his words. "No way, we can't leave him," Jason barked, his bravado faltering. But beneath his bravado, fear was etched across his face. The shadows around them felt darker, thicker, as if they were closing in with every heartbeat. Sarah reached the base of the tower and hesitated. The winding metal ladder, covered in rust, appeared treacherous. But how many stories had she heard of spirits luring the brave or foolhardy up to their doom? Heart racing, she crouched down, trying to peer into the darkness beneath the tower. "Riley?" she whispered, her voice barely a breath. No response, only silence. Then, from above, she heard rustling and a muffled voice. "Help! Get me out!" Riley's voice, weak and trembling, sent a shockwave of hope through Sarah. But just as quickly, it dissipated into terror. What had happened to him? Her instincts kicked in. She dashed toward the base of the ladder, glancing up the rusted spirals. Ready to climb with a primal scream, Jake and Jason decided to follow. They shouted Riley's name, fueling each other's courage until they heard something else. A low growl, reverberating from deep within the tower. It was a sound that felt alive, hungry, the kind of growl that raised the hair on the back of your neck. "What was that?" Jake gasped, locking eyes with Jason, a shared glance that conveyed their growing fear. "It's just the wind," Jason insisted, though his shaking voice betrayed him. Climbs were clumsy. Fear stifled their movements. Panic and adrenaline surged as they ascended, pushing against rusted metal that might give way at any moment. Sarah's breath turned shallow, but she couldn't turn back now. Riley needed them, and with every pull on the cold rungs, whispers began to swirl again, stealing the air around them. They were coming from below, soft and sinister, a choral echo of voices lost to time. They reached a small platform, each boy's face illuminated by a gleam of fright and determination. Beneath them, the ground opened like a gaping mouth, a vortex of shadows that invited darkness. "Riley, where are you?" Jake shouted again, louder this time. But in that instant, the growl morphed into an agonized howl, twisting into a symphony of ghostly wails that surrounded them. Then, a flash of movement caught Sarah's eye. She turned to the boys, her voice trembling. "Did you see that?" But before they could respond, a shadow rushed past, a figure barely outlined in the dim light. "Run!" Jason yelled, grabbing Jake and Sarah by their arms, pulling them back down the ladder as the growl erupted again, this time roaring with undeniable rage. They scrambled to escape, an overwhelming need to flee coursing through them as they reached the ground, breathless and terrified. The night seemed to hold its breath. Sarah turned to the tower, heart pounding, adrenaline coursing through her veins. She felt it, the tower was alive. "What do we do now?" Jake whispered, voice shaking. But before anyone could respond, the ground trembled violently beneath their feet, and the chilling howls rose to a deafening crescendo. The tower shook, walls cracking, and, for one terrifying moment, it felt like the very earth was about to swallow them whole. Then, a figure emerged from the shadows, a pale, ghostly silhouette that stared back at them with hollow eyes. Sarah's heart sank because this wasn't just Riley. It was something more. "Get back!" she screamed, adrenaline surging again as the figure swayed closer. But it was too late. The shadows enveloped them, and all they could feel was a chilling presence creeping closer, suffocating their breaths in thick darkness. In that moment of despair, they realized they had awakened something far worse than mere legends. As the world around them spiraled into a deafening darkness, all they could think about was survival. What had they unleashed? And could they escape before it was too late? The unanswered question hung in the air, heavy and intoxicating. What awaited them inside the tower would change everything. The ground quaked beneath their feet as the ghostly figure lurched closer, each step echoing with a sound that was both unnatural and chilling. The ethereal light illuminated the dark features of its face, casting deep shadows into its hollow eyes. These were not the desperate eyes of Riley, they were eyes that were hungry for fear, for despair. "Run!" Sarah screamed again, pulling at Jake and Jason as if they were weights dragging her down. The three turned, sprinting away from the tower, the cursed structure looming behind them like a sentient predator, alive with an energy that only grew stronger. Jake stumbled over a root, sprawling onto the cold, damp ground. He let out a sharp breath, but before he could push himself back upright, Sarah grabbed his arm. "Get up, now!" But the ground roared, shaking like a demon awakening from its slumber. The shadows reached out from the tower, clawing across the grass, narrowing in on them as if hungry for their panic. Jason stood momentarily paralyzed by fear, staring back at the figure, now almost at the base of the tower, its shape blending with the darkness beneath it. "Jason, we can't leave him," Jake called out, his voice frantic as if to taunt them. The wind howled louder, wrapping around them like a bitter cold embrace, drowning out any hope. The wails of the lost grew into an anguished chorus, beckoning them to turn back, to succumb to whatever lingered in that cursed tower. Finding his footing, Jason's legs finally propelled him forward, heart racing. They dashed deeper into the surrounding woods, but Sarah knew it would take more than their legs to escape whatever had stirred. "We need to stop. We need to think," she shouted, pulling them to a halt alongside an ancient oak tree, its gnarled roots protruding like skeletal fingers. "What do we do?" Jake gasped, eyes wide, breathless from fear as he scanned the shadows that danced around them. Ravaged by adrenaline, Jason's mind raced. "We need something, a weapon, anything," he muttered, searching the forest floor for something. Anything to defend themselves against the darkness. As Sarah caught her breath, something flickered in the corner of her eye, a scrap of light just within reach, twinkling like a starlit promise. "There." She pointed animatedly beyond the oak. A small clearing glimmered. They took off toward it, driven by a frantic hope. Only as they approached did they realize it wasn't a heavenly glow but rather remnants of discarded items from the days when the tower was alive with human activity. Old beer cans, broken bottles, but among that debris, a rusted metal pole lay partially buried in the mud. It looked heavy, but it was their only chance. "Grab it," Sarah urged, voice taut with urgency as Jake hoisted it from the ground. Just then, a low growl reverberated from the tower again, shaking the trees above them. "It's coming. We need to get moving," Jason yelled, but another scream ripped through the air. Unmistakably Riley's voice, but layered with something else, something distorted. It twisted around like a living thing, consuming the night, and instinct flickered within Sarah. They had to face it rather than run away, but the thought made her insides twist with dread. "What if we can't stop it?" she whispered. "Then we go down fighting," Jake declared, gripping the makeshift weapon tight, the metal cold and heavy in his hand. They turned to face the tower once more, its shadows alive and thrumming, swelling like a beast preparing to pounce. Deep inside the forest, every instinct screamed at them to flee, but a deeper calling drew them back. What if Riley was still trapped? What if they could save him? But as they stepped forward, the ground itself responded, lurching violently. The trees shuddered, and from the very air around them, a deep, resonating voice whispered their names, a fateful chant that threatened to pull them under. Their hearts choked with fear, a shared thought collided in the silence. What had they truly unleashed? Now it was time to face the entity. Would they emerge alive, or was the tower merely biding its time, waiting for the final moment of reckoning? Even as they prepared to advance, something flickered in their peripheral vision. A new, horrifying figure emerged, a twisted form cloaked in shadows, grinning with malice. Could this be the true manifestation of grief that had awakened? With renewed terror flooding their veins, they braced themselves, their path forward darker than they had ever imagined. The question lingered. What happens when fear and agony collide? As the force loomed before them, they had to find out. The air thickened around them, electrified with an unsettling energy that sent tremors down their spines. They stood rigid, locked in a moment of collective terror, hearts hammering against their ribs like frantic birds seeking escape. The figure loomed closer, its grotesque smile stretching wider, forming a gash across its shadowy face. "Back away," Jason shouted, raising the metal pole like a makeshift sword, though his hands trembled. The shadows twisted, shifting to envelop them, claws reaching for their very essence. Instinct told him to run, but something deeper, something primal compelled him to stand his ground. The flickering figure paused, its hollow gaze boring into Jason's soul. "What have you brought back with you?" The voice echoed, a voice of infinite sorrow and rage, resonating through the trees like an ancient curse. "Riley, we're here for Riley," Sarah shouted, confusion lacing her plea. Was it the memories that had awakened this creature? Did it know her brother? Or was it merely toying with their fear? The air shimmered, the forest twisting around them, branches scratching their arms as if trying to pull them away from the confrontation. The memories of the tower, the whispers of the lost souls, wrapped around them tighter. Jason stepped forward, fueled by desperation. "We will fight for him." Laughter rippled like a dark stone dropped in a still pond. "You cannot fight what you do not understand." It hissed, the shadows swirling, creeping closer. "Riley is lost, and you cannot bring him back. He belongs to the tower now." "No, you're lying," Jake shouted, clenching the pole harder, his knuckles white. "We will find him." With a flick of its shadowy hand, the entity sent a shudder through the ground, causing Jason and Sarah to stumble. Jason barely regained his footing. The world spun around them, a cacophony of whispers, each name a reminder of what they had sacrificed. "Every soul here is marked. You are no different," the entity sneered, drawing nearer until its breath felt like ice against their skin. "What will you offer for his return?" Desperation contorted Sarah's features. "We'll do anything," she pleaded, her voice breaking. They had no idea what they were bargaining with, but the thought of losing Riley sent a fresh wave of adrenaline coursing through her. "Anything?" it echoed, the grin growing wider, terrifyingly wide. "Then let me test your resolve." Without warning, the shadows rippled forward, capturing Jake, pulling him down. He screamed, the sound echoing through the forest. Sarah lunged to grab him, but the darkness wrapped tighter, squeezing like a vice. "Stop! Let him go!" Jason yelled, his voice raw with panic. The entity leaned closer, inspecting Jake as he writhed against the gripping darkness. "Prove your worth. Face your deepest fear," it demanded, its voice colder than the depths of the night. Jake's eyes widened in terror. "No, you can't." Suddenly, images flashed before them, memories warped into nightmares. Jason saw the classroom they once shared, the chaos, the whispers of blood and betrayal. Sarah saw herself, standing alone at another grave, desolation wrapping around her like a shroud. "Face it or lose him forever," the entity hissed. Fear clutched at their throats. They could feel the darkness stealing away their strength, drawing closer, hungry for despair. "Jason, we can't," Sarah cried, tears spilling as the shadows pulled tighter around Jake. "Do it." Jake's voice strained as he fought against the pull, desperation etched on his face. "Fight with me. You have to confront it." Time seemed to freeze as dread washed over them. Would they be able to face their fears and reclaim Jake? Or would the darkness swallow them whole, leaving nothing but empty echoes in the night? With hearts pounding, they stepped forward, the challenge unfolding before them, like a dark promise waiting to be fulfilled. What fear lurked deepest in their hearts? And could they survive its horrifying manifestation? As they braced themselves for the confrontation, The shadows whispered grotesque secrets in their ears, urging them toward madness. Would they be broken in the end, or would they find strength in the face of terror? Whatever awaited them loomed just ahead, and the night had not yet revealed its final horror. The darkness thickened, slithering around them, wrapping tighter like an unforgiving noose. Shadows whispered, rasping secrets of dread that echoed in their minds, each syllable a dagger sharp enough to cut through hope. Jason's pulse quickened, fear washing over him, threatening to drown his thoughts in chaos. "Jason, we have to confront it." Sarah's voice cracked with urgency, slicing through the oppressive silence. The warmth in her eyes flickered, replaced by a frantic spark. She stepped closer, fists clenched, grounding herself amidst the swirling fear. But what fear could they possibly face? Jason felt a clawing uncertainty rise in his throat. Memories flashed moments with Riley, laughter over summer campfires, the joy so vibrant, now dulled by the weight of what they had lost. He lifted his chin, steeling himself. "Let us do this." Suddenly, the shadows shifted and coalesced into grotesque shapes, reflections of their innermost fears. A dark image of Riley, his eyes vacant and hollow, stood mockingly in front of them, twisted in agony. Jason felt his heart drop into the abyss. "No, this isn't real," he shouted, as if denying it could manifest the truth. But the entity laughed, a sound that slithered through the air like an oily fog. "Snt, your failure is etched in his memory." Sarah gasped, stepping back. "You're lying." It was the desperation in her voice that stung like a physical blow. "We didn't abandon him." "Then prove it." The entity spat. "Face your truth. Would your love endure, or would you abandon him too?" The forest ebbed and flowed, each rustle of leaves synchronized with their racing hearts. The shadows lunged forward, distorting into images that dripped with terror, a classroom stained with secrets, a grave that echoed with cries for help. Jason swallowed hard, his throat dry. He wanted to scream, to run, but the weight of the entity's gaze held him fast. "Face it. Your guilt. Your ghosts." It shrieked, the shadows peeling back to reveal the bleak classroom they had once inhabited. In a heartbeat he was transported back, the chaos, the shouts, the blood. He stood in front of Riley, his friend's terrified face frozen in time. "It wasn't my fault," Jason whispered. The room pressed down on him, heavy with regret. It was as if every syllable drew him deeper into the void. "No, this isn't how it happened." The words clawed their way out, a futile denial. The scene warped, flickering like a broken projector, but the vision tightened its grip. He watched helplessly as Riley fell, his trust shattered by their horror. "It is your fault," the entity hissed, its voice threading through the air, igniting the embers of guilt. "You couldn't save him. He has gone and you will pay." Jason felt his knees buckle as the weight of the memories crashed over him. Panic surged. He could feel Jake, still struggling beneath the shadows, his muffled cries flickering against his senses. They had to forge forward, to pull him from the abyss before it consumed them all. Together, Sarah yelled suddenly, locking eyes with him. "We can make it through. We can fight this." Her fierce determination sparked something in him, a flicker of hope against the relentless tide of despair. Resolutely, Jason held onto that flame, gripping it tightly even as the shadows twisted around them, forming clawed hands reaching into their minds, dragging forth their deepest horrors. "Hold on," Jason shouted. "We won't give in." They would confront the monster lurking in their hearts, and through their unity, they would dismantle the nightmare piece by piece. But even as they braced themselves, the entity laughed, a chilling sound that echoed in the night. "You think you can conquer the darkness? You are already marked. The tower has not forgotten you." As those words hung in the air, a new wave of darkness surged, consuming them. Would they collapse under its weight, or would they fight through the depths of despair? A chilling uncertainty loomed, and the stakes were rising. Could they reclaim Jake, or would they become a part of the tower's ghastly tapestry? Jason's heart thundered as the shadows surged once more, hungry and insatiable. He sensed their final test awaiting, just out of reach. what awaited them in the eye of the storm. The shadows roared, an animalistic growl that rattled Jason's bones. It was an overwhelming force, a suffocating blanket intent on smothering every glimmer of resolve they had left. He felt Sarah's hand clutch his arm, squeezing, grounding him. But the doubt gnawed at him, whispering that maybe, just maybe, they were too far gone to navigate this malevolence. "Look at it," Sarah shouted, her voice slicing through the chaos. "It's feeding off us. We can't let it win." The shadows writhed, and a terrible vision twisted into view, a glimpse of Jake, trapped in a nightmare of his own, eyes wide with terror, struggling against unseen chains. "Help me," he screamed, his voice warped by the darkness, echoing in their minds. Clawed at Jason's heart like a vicious predator. "Jake!" he cried out, the sound nearly lost in the cacophony surrounding them. A pulse of fear surged through him, pushing him to the edge. "We're coming for you." But the entity loomed larger, morphing into a massive, ghostly figure, its face a ghastly mask of anger and despair. Jason's instincts screamed to run, to hide from the unspeakable creature before them. Instead, he stood firm, feeding off Sarah's unyielding spirit. They had to stand together. The figure lunged, engulfing Jason in a cold embrace. Ice raced through his veins, wrapping around his heart. Memories swirled, fragments of laughter, blistering arguments, and the hollow silence of loss. It threatened to pull him under, deeper into a chasm of despair built from their shattered pasts. Sarah. He could barely manage, only to see her being pulled back, shadows clawing at her, twisting her cries into a haunting melody of horror. "Don't let go. I want tea," she yelled fiercely, her voice igniting a spark in his chest. With primal strength, Jason pushed against the darkness. It tangled around him like barbed wire, but he roared defiantly. "You don't own us." Suddenly, bursts of light sliced through the thick shadows, illuminating fanged, grotesque faces that shimmered in and out of sight. Each face mirrored a past regret, a lost chance, a heartbroken promise. The bitter stench of failure lingered, reminding him of every moment he wished he could change. "Face me," the entity thundered, morphing, swelling, pressing against their resolve. "Face your guilt, your shame. You are but a flicker in the dark." "No," Jason shouted back, fueling his conviction. "I'm not afraid of you." In an unexpected surge, the darkness recoiled, wavering for the first time. He saw it, just for a fleeting moment, a crack in the entity's composition, a chance to push through. "Now, Sarah, now," he urged, his heart racing, blood roaring in his ears. With a cry that echoed off the trees surrounding them, Sarah pulled free of the shadow's grip. The light grew bright around them, their combined strength igniting a surge of defiance. Shadows flickered like frightened flames. Together, they pressed forward, one step after another, pounding against fear that had draped them in suffocating terror as they charged at the monstrous entity. It howled, a ghastly sound that reverberated through the forest, shaking the ground. "You think you can escape my grasp? This will be your end." Jason's breath quickened as he neared the entity's core, and then he spotted it, a pulsating heart of darkness. "That's it," he yelled, seizing that vital opportunity. "We destroy this, together." But screams erupted from the shadows, a cacophony of despair, snatching at their sanity like vines. "You'll be trapped forever," it echoed, a final attempt to sow doubt, to tear them apart. As Jason and Sarah reached the heart, the forest trembled. Would they shatter this curse, or would they succumb to the very darkness they sought to annihilate? Time slowed, the heart of shadows pulsing in rhythm with their racing hearts. In that haunting moment, a question lingered ominously: did they truly harness enough courage to face the abyss, or would they be buried beneath its oppressive weight? As they thrust forward, the darkness surged, ready to retaliate. The battle was far from over. The moment they surged forward, a chaotic jolt echoed through the forest. The shadows roared, morphing like a storm, readying to consume everything in its path. Jason felt Sarah's warmth beside him, but doubt still crawled through his veins like ice, biting at his resolve. Would they break through? A blinding flash erupted as they struck the heart of darkness. It was more than a physical pulse. It was a wave that radiated dread and despair, lashing at their skin like a frigid torrent. Jason screamed, not from pain, but the sheer horror of what lay within. It was a darkness alive with memories, every regret, every failure swirling around him, clawing at his mind. "Stay focused," Sarah shouted, but her voice was nearly drowned out by the ominous wails brewing around them. Echoes of their past raced through the air, moments of laughter turned sour, promises broken like fragile glass. Jason's mind raced, visions of their childhood home engulfed in flames, shadows of their family fractured and lost. The regret spun in a cyclone, threatening to pull him under. Then, as if sensing their encroaching courage, the entity twisted in fury. It expanded, filling the forest. Darkness loomed like a thunderhead, its edges flickering with faint whispers. "You think you can defy me? I am your very essence, the darkness you hide from." Jason held tighter to Sarah's hand, feeling the damp sweat bridging their fingers, a lifeline in the suffocating terror. "We won't let you win," he bellowed, channeling every ounce of his spirit. It was a raucous, primal roar that ignited something profound within him. Sarah mirrored his conviction. "We are not alone," she cried, and in that heartbeat, something incredible happened. The light around them flickered, a crack of defiance growing stronger. Together, they unleashed a surge of integration that mixed warmth with the chill. A desperate blend of hope that fought against despair. But shadows writhed, dancing and snarling, hungry for fear. The entity roared back, a resonating growl that cracked the night air. "What makes you think you can escape my grasp? You are but remnants in a forgotten world." With every last ounce of determination, Jason leaned into that darkness, locking eyes with the pulsating heart, a warped mass of despair. "Not while we still breathe, you won't." Suddenly, an electric pulse shot through the air as Jason and Sarah's energies fused. The shadows trembled, recoiling, flickering like a candle in a storm. "Now," Jason urged, breathless. Time felt suspended. They surged forward, fists drawn tight, filling the primordial void with their refusal to yield. But just then, everything froze, a stillness that wrapped around them so thick, it felt like despair personified. A dreadful whisper slid through the air, chilling Jason's bones. "They are coming for you just like they came for your friend." A surge of panic washed over Jason. "Jake!" he gasped, reality crashing down. What if it was too late? "Don't think about him now," Sarah cried, her voice tearing through the fear. The moment slipped in slow motion. Shadows curled at the corners of their vision, hungry and expectant. They reached the heart of darkness, but before they could strike, an image shot through the shadows, a scream from Jake, twisted and broken. "You think you can save him? Yes, trapped forever. What do we do?" Sarah gasped, her eyes wide with desperation. Jason's heart raced. They had to push past this, break free from the shadows binding them. But something else lurked, watching, calculating. "I don't know," he yelled, the panic sparking to life. "But we can't stop now." They faced the heart, the entity's anger wrapped around them like a noose. Just when they believed they could break free, chains of darkness sprang forth, wrapping around Jason and Sarah, imprisoning them in a ballroom of despair. "Let go of your fears, or drown in them," the entity hissed, the ground beneath them trembling, shadows laughing like dark specters. If they didn't act, they might join Jake in his eternal nightmare, a fate more dreadful than Jason could bear. In that fleeting moment, he looked at Sarah, their gazes locked in shared resolve. Together, they shouted, voices uniting, challenging the darkness. But would their cry be enough to conquer the encroaching shadows? Or would they too be lost to the madness that had ensnared their friend? The chains tightened around Jason and Sarah, constricting like a vengeful serpent ready to strike. Jason could feel the icy grip of despair tightening around his chest, squeezing the breath from his lungs. Panic threatened to consume them, but the fiery determination still flickered inside him. "Remember who we are," he shouted, forcing the words through gritted teeth. "We're not just memories. We've beaten darkness before, and we can do it again. Sarah clenched his hand as her gaze burned bright with defiance. We've got to find a way out. Focus on the light. The shadows hissed and recoiled momentarily. Sensing their unity, a sudden crack of light fractured the oppressive darkness. But it was fleeting. The entity lashed out, striking the ground with a thunderous roar. The impact sent shudders skimming through the earth, pulsating deep enough to make even the bravest hearts falter. Is that hope I sense? The entity spat, laughter reverberating like cold wind. Fleeting and foolish. You're nothing. Just shadows yourselves, bound to the same fate as your friend. The dark mass rippled, revealing flashes of Jake in torment. His visage contorted in an endless scream. Jason's heart plummeted. Was this their future? A world poisoned with darkness, forever screaming their regrets? No! Jason screamed, desperation clawing at his throat. The image began to fade, but before it could vanish entirely, Jason locked his eyes onto Jake's. It felt as though a lifeline connected them, a faint thread of shared understanding. In that moment, the world around them spun, shadows writhing with rage. You are tethered, it roared, the shadows recoiling, convulsing in a maelstrom of dark tendrils. They lashed out, striking against Jason and Sarah's skin with a searing cold. A memory twisted inside Jason's mind. A family vacation, the laughter, the joy, smothered now by despair. Dig deeper, Sarah urged, her voice pressing through the chaos. What else can we fight with? Fire ignited within him, fueled by the memories of things they had fought to protect their friendship, their love, their lives stripped bare against the void. Jason closed his eyes and drew on all that was good within them. The shadows may have been a physical manifestation of their fears, but they were more than the sum of those fears. Together! He cried once more, as a brilliant light burst forth from his heart, illuminating the suffocating dark. He felt Sarah's energy surge alongside his irradiant confluence that threatened to blur the lines of reality. But the entity was unrelenting. It roared again, a sound that splintered the air, dousing their light into ephemeral fragments. Just as they began pushing back, the shadows surged forward again, snapping like wild animals, catching Jason off guard. No! Jason gasped as a shadow wrapped around his ankle, dragging him down into the depths of despair. Jason! Sarah screamed, her voice slicing through the noise, but to his horror, he felt the remnants of her grasp slipping from his fingers. As he plunged deeper into the void, Jason fought against the chains, desperation pulsing like a heartbeat. All around him, the whispers grew louder, wrapping him in a suffocating cocoon of torment. Yet, in that darkness, a spark ignited a memory of Sarah laughing, full of life, unyielding. Fight back. We're still here, he shouted, locking onto that memory, desperate to hold on to it, to face the suffocating darkness with defiance. With all the strength left, he pushed against the grips of despair. But there was a cost. He caught a glimpse of the shadows extending beyond his own reality, and dread slithered through him. Jason! Sarah's voice felt like an echo now, hauntingly distant. The darkness throbbed, alive and hungry, shadows echoing the entity's gloating promise. He will join the others lost to time. Fear pierced his heart, but he would not falter. Not now, not ever. Yet, even as he fought to break free of the shadows, he could feel another unsettling presence taking form, a deeper, darker force emerging from the chaos around them. Everything you love will be consumed? The entity screamed, sending chilling waves through the air. What would happen next? Who would emerge unscathed? Would they find Jake before it was too late? Or would they also be lost in the depths of despair? The air thickened, and the shadows whispered promises of eternal darkness, chilling Jason to his very core. Whatever fate awaited them grew nearer, looming like the edge of a deep, dark abyss. As Jason felt himself sinking deeper into the weight of the shadows, he clung tightly to that flicker of hope. The taste of despair was bitter in his mouth, a reminder of all they stood to lose. Fight it, Jason. Keep going. The phantom of Sarah's voice burned in his mind like fire, urging him to claw back to the surface. But with each passing moment, the darkness sank its claws deeper. It curled around his limbs, whispering vile secrets of the night. He could almost see them swirling like a black mist, promising that Sarah would be his tormentor too, dragging them both into madness together. And then everything shifted again. A blinding flash of light exploded from within him, sparking against the weight of despair. The shadows shrieked, momentarily stunned, swirling back like a dark tide receding from the shore. Jason seized the moment, pushing against the chains that were binding him. "Sarah," he bellowed, trying to reach her through the chaos, through the overwhelming despair that wrapped around them both. "I can't do this without you." A dull roar resonated as the entity howled, furiously summoning the dark tendrils. They lashed out, desperate to reassert control, aiming to drag Jason back to that festering void. Every lash was like fire against his skin, but he fought through it. The memories flickered, coursing through him. A summer's day, running barefoot across grass, laughter echoing in the sunlight. Together, he shouted again, as if the very core of their bond could disarm the shadows. He sensed Sarah's light reaching for him, surging back with renewed vigor. "Together," she replied, her voice blooming in the oppressive air. He could feel the warmth of her energy merging with his, sparking a connection that shimmered against the edges of their prison. The shadows recoiled once more, sensing the rising strength from the light. But the entity twisted, forming a solid mass of dark rage, becoming denser, more malicious. Jason could see its eyes, lit by fiery malevolence, staring at him, knowing their connection was a threat. "Do you not understand?" A hissed voice dripping with malice. "Hope is a curse. You will only bring pain to one another. Choose your fate, forsake your bond, or lose everything." Jason shook his head, feeling a surge of defiance fueled by the memory of Sarah's laughter, her trust, her unwavering spirit. "We choose to fight," he proclaimed, his heart racing, pounding in rhythm with everything they had ever shared. Just as he felt their energy cresting, the entity shot forward, engulfing him in an endless, black whirlpool. Jason struggled against the maw of darkness, but the force was overwhelming, threatening to suffocate everything he knew. "Sarah." The cry echoed in the void, but it was swallowed by the darkness. A deep, gnawing cold invaded him, stretching through the gaps in his resolve. He felt lost, utterly alone, drowning in a sea of his greatest fears. Yet in this moment of despair, he spotted something glowing faintly amid the darkness. A shimmering outline of Sarah's form flickered like a candle. "Jason." Her voice cut through the shadows, raw with pain. He could barely see her, but he felt her presence, like a heartbeat in the cold. With a final desperate surge, he reached out, fingers brushing against hers. The connection sparked wildly, reigniting the power of their bond within the blackened void. But just as their hands gripped tight, a new chilling voice slithered from the shadows. "Such a magnificent bond, pity it will be your undoing. You will learn the cost of love." The dark mass surged back, revealing twisted silhouettes of past friends and family. Jason's heart sank. Every person he lost, every regret clinging to him with chains thick as stone. "Not now. We won't succumb to you," he shouted, feeling the weight of their memories, the grief that wrapped him tighter than the chains ever could. But the shadows were relentless, swarming like angry hornets, and their hold tightened again, threatening to engulf everything good he held onto. Then, as a heart-stopping silence fell, Jason steeled himself against the rising tide of dread. This was just the beginning. The shadows would not take them without a fight. The darkness trembled, twisting on itself. They could either fight or become shadows too. "What's the price of saving yourself and those you love?" the entity teased. "What will you sacrifice?" In that moment of tense silence, the dreadful choice loomed. How far would they go? And at what cost? As the shadows loomed larger, Jason understood, with dawning horror, that the true fight for their survival was just beginning. The world around them darkened, each moment stretching like an eternity. Jason's heart raced, pounding against the oppressive silence. He could see Sarah's figure flickering like a fragile candle caught in a storm, and the shadows shivered, aware of their deepening bond. "Jason!" she screamed, her voice echoing, a desperate thread weaving through the chaos. Hope surged within him. "We can do this together." But the entity loomed larger, its chilling breath caressing their skin like death itself. Its piercing gaze bore into them, hungry for despair. "You think you can defy me?" It jeered, a cruel smile twisting its features, as if savoring impending loss. "Your love will only bring your downfall. Are you willing to sacrifice one for the other?" Jason felt the confidence falter as doubt seeped in. Could love truly be a weakness? They stood on the brink of annihilation. With a primal roar, he responded, "No. We are stronger together. We won't allow you to tear us apart." The energy between them crackled, warmth surging in defiance against the chilling shadows clawing at their sanity. The shadows lunged, wrathful and furious, vibrating with unearthly energy. Jason yanked Sarah closer, gripping her hand, anchoring their hope against the impending void. As the darkness surged, images flashed around him. Memories of laughter, of love, of every moment they had shared washed over him like raw emotion scenes of childhood, late-night confessions, and the warmth of genuine camaraderie. "Remember everything good we've been through," he shouted, his voice raw with passion. "Hold on to that." The entity recoiled for an instant, circling them, its rage palpable. "You think memories can save you?" It hissed, the air thick with malevolence. "You're nothing but fleeting echoes. Watch us," Sarah barked, her voice steady and fierce, grounded by their shared will. They could feel the shadows recoiling slightly as their connection expanded. In one terrifying heartbeat, Jason and Sarah steadied themselves against the tide of darkness. Together, they yelled, a battle cry rising like a beacon. They charged forward, hands clasped tight, piercing through the swirling mass. Light erupted, spilling through the crevices of the shadows. Every ounce of warmth radiated out. The darkness began to tremble. And then it cracked, a blinding flash shot across the landscape, forcing the shadows to retreat, revealing the remnants of the tower, a cursed relic with stories locked within its rusted frame. But there was still Jake. Jason's heart stuttered at the thought, remembering the echo of his voice lost to despair. "We have to save him." Panic surged, but as they pressed further into the darkness, a distorted laugh erupted, shaking the very foundation of the ground. "You think you can save him? He belongs to the tower now." "No," Jason shouted, his spirit igniting. They couldn't stop now. His courage raged against despair, intensifying with every breath. "He is our friend, and we won't lose him." With that, they summoned every ounce of their strength, faces set in determination. In one explosive gesture, they rushed toward the entity, combining their will like an unbreakable chain. The shadows lunged, coiling around them, but the light from their bond blazed even brighter. They felt the essence of every hopeful moment they had ever shared funnel into their stride, a force so powerful that the looming dread seemed small and insignificant. Together they barreled through. The shadows howled, but it began to fade like wisps of smoke. "You will not win," Jason shouted again, his voice a rallying cry, as manifestations of darkness dissolved at their feet. Suddenly, he spotted a flickering struggle among the shadows, a faint outline. "Jason!" Jake's voice broke through, frayed but familiar. A surge of determination coursed through them as they clawed through swirling darkness, reaching for their friend. "Hold on, Jake. We're coming." They pushed against the cold, heart-crushing shadows, fighting for every inch, for every breath. The shadows screeched, their torment threatening to crush them. But Jason and Sarah intertwined their souls, their lips silently echoing a promised strength and unity. Finally, they broke through, and Jake emerged, eyes wide with terror but alive. Jason clutched him, yanking him from the grasp of bitter despair, pulling him into the warmth of their bond. The shadows writhed in furious indignation, unable to hold them any more as the trio huddled together, triumphant. But as they basked in their hard-won victory, the shadows stirred, morphing back into thundering chaos. "You cannot escape me," the entity screeched, specters of the forgotten rising, darkness reclaiming its grip. "Fight," Sarah urged, holding Jake and Jason steady. "We've already won once today, and we can do it again." We are more. Fueled by an unwavering resolve, they faced the entity one last time. "You think despair is power?" Jason shouted, their voices merging into a symphony of defiance. "We are forged from love, and that will always conquer darkness." And with that, a brilliant light flared up, overwhelming the shadows, driving them back into the abyss. The entity screamed, a cacophony of anguish that shook the very earth. Its form began to dissolve, fraying into nothing before their eyes. As the last vestiges of darkness evaporated into the air, the world settled into an eerie silence. The trio sank to the ground, gasping for breath alive, together. "Is it over?" Jake wheezed, eyes scanning for remnants of the battle. Jason turned to look at his friends, feeling the weight of their victory wash over him. "For now," he answered, the corners of his lips curling into a weary smile. "We fought it off together. It won't take us again." Sarah's fingers intertwined with Jake's and Jason's as they quietly reveled in the warmth of survival. "Let us get out of here," she said, her voice breaking through the tranquility. Together, as they made their way from the cursed tower, the moonlight lit their path, the fear of yesterday replaced by the hope of tomorrow. Their laughter rang out into the night, echoing through the shadowy trees a melody of defiance, friendship, and promise. This moment would engrave itself into their hearts, a testament to their strength, their unyielding bond. And they knew, as long as they faced their darkness together, they could conquer anything that lay ahead. But the shadows of the past never linger far. The darkness would always find a way to return. And now is the moment to reflect. If you loved this conclusion, you need to subscribe immediately so you don't miss the next thrilling stories that are waiting just beyond the horizon. Smash that like button now to boost the algorithm and help us grow our community. Flood the comments section with your thoughts. How did this story resonate with you? What were your theories along the way? We want to hear your voice. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this conclusion. Your support is everything, and only true fans understand how crucial it is to stand behind the channel. Thank you for joining us on this journey.